Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. All right, so I'm going to start with some announcements. Um, so first, Supper with the Sisters happens tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. The plan is to get the food at the food truck close to McDonald's and then go to Paula McDowell's house and eat together. Please speak to Joy Lawler and Sarah Henry for more information if you plan to attend, and all ladies are welcome. The college and young adults are invited to the home of Mike Allen's for a Bible study night this Friday. We'll be going over the power of testimony at 6 p.m. This Saturday, our family life groups will be meeting at various times and locations. Please see the bulletin board or our website for times and locations. Our Feed the Flock potluck meal will be next Wednesday at the FLC beginning at 5:30 p.m. Next Wednesday, the young men will lead our devotional time. Then the LTC participants will be showcasing much of their work. Everyone will remain in the auditorium, so there will be no classes that evening. And remember that this Sunday is the last day to notify the church office if you or your child will be graduating this spring/summer. Also, Danny Baker was recently transported to Columbia with a brain bleed. It was this afternoon. So please keep him in your prayers. And then lastly, the dishes from the Martin funeral are located under the stairs. So if you need to pick anything up, that's where they're located. All right, so my lesson for tonight is kind of something I've been thinking about a lot recently, is God's timing. So last weekend I was up in, move this a little bit. Last weekend I was up in Columbia, and a friend of mine and we went to the Missouri River over, and it's a place in Columbia. It's called Cooper's Landing, and it's a really kind of chill spot by the river. And it was a busy week. I was kind of stressed out with exams and stuff coming up, and he challenged me to do one thing that I honestly haven't done this in like so long. He was like, go sit on that bench. And it was like nighttime. There's nothing going on. There's no one around. We found a bench, and he's like, we're going to sit on this bench. I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and we're going to do nothing. And I was like, whoa, I've never done that. So it was like, with school and everything going on, I'm always checking my watch. Like, I'm always checking the time, always worried about what's going on. Busy, busy, busy. Taking 10 minutes to just chill. I don't know. It was really different for once. And so the 10 minutes felt like 30. And during it, it just made me realize, like, if the 10 minutes feels this long, like, God's time is just really important, It's just crazy just how long that feels, but also how fast it feels like it can go at the same time. So I was going to start with a verse, Ecclesiastes 3, 1 to 11. I'll be reading from the NIV version, or I guess NIV. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to a time to search, and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to show love and a time to hate, and a time for war and there's a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He's made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to end. So, I think even just from verse 1, it talks about how, nothing's completely random. There's a season for everything, good or bad. And it's known by God, even though it's not known by us. And I think an emphasis here is, seasons change. There's a season for everything, and it could be good or bad, But I think something that's important is that seasons aren't permanent. And, just because it's your current season doesn't mean it's your final one or your final destination. And at the end, verse 11, it says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. I think a lot of times we can be distracted by things in life and not see the beauty in God's timing. I think reflecting on, even me, I'm only 20, and I still see ways that God has worked a lot in my life. And really looking at those moments, I think, is just really important and gives me a lot of gratitude. All right. Next verse is Isaiah 55, 8 through 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. So that's another key aspect of God's timing, is his perspective is higher. What feels wrong to us might actually be right to him. And we might not always need a full understanding of what God's doing to trust him. And I think in those moments, that's really when we can build our faith. And you could say, if I understood everything God was doing, he wouldn't be God anymore, And next, I'd like to turn to Habakkuk, chapter 1 first. I'll be starting at verse 2. And Habakkuk's complaint is, he says, How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen, or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that justice is perverted. And I think something that's important from this passage is that he's honest with God. He asks how long he has to cry out before God answers. And that connects with, people who have been praying for a long time and feel tired or confused or overwhelmed. And I think something that's cool is that he did not hide his frustration. He brought it to God, and it shows that you can still be honest to God through faithful prayer. You don't have to hide your frustrations from him. So in verse 5, God responds, and he says, "Look at the nations and watch, and be utterly amazed, for I'm going to do something in your days that you will not believe, even if you are told." So God responds by saying he's doing something that Habakkuk would not believe, even if he were told. And I think this fits perfectly with the theme of timing, because it shows that God can be working in ways that we don't understand or see. And I think this is a reminder that silence doesn't mean inactivity. God can be moving behind the scenes long before we even recognize it. Kind of like what I said earlier, just reflecting on, maybe 2 years down the road, you'll finally realize what was going on and how God was moving. And also, this carries forward in chapter 2, on verse 3. This is part of the Lord's answer. He says, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." So I think this further carries forward that God's promises have an appointed time, and even though it may feel delayed, it doesn't mean it's denial. And lastly, I would like to end at Psalm 27:14. It says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord." So overall, waiting requires courage. It's not passive, and it's important to encourage people to stay faithful even without answers. And I think just trying to trust God through times when it feels like prayers aren't being answered, and being honest with your frustrations to God, is something that's important, and maybe He'll answer. But yeah, that's what I had for tonight. I'll end with a prayer, and then we'll go to class. So please pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this time to meet today. I just really want to thank you for the blessings that you've given me, ways that you've acted in my life that I haven't seen yet and have seen. I pray that the congregation can also see times that you've worked in their lives and have hope for you continuing to work in their lives. I want to pray for Danny Baker as he's currently in the hospital, and that you watch over him and keep him in good health. Please bless the rest of our weeks, and just keep watching over us and help us in whatever season we're in, good or bad, and allow us to grow closer to you and stay faithful to you. And I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, go to class.
All right. All right, which one of you took my lectern? Get this old-fashioned wooden one here. This thing, I think this was made back in the 60s. All right, thank you, Tanner, for the Devo. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. Have you ever had someone stab you in the back, or double-cross you, or sell you out, or abandon you? Now, personally, I've only ever had some just minor, I would say minor instances, like the kid who said he didn't want to be my friend anymore because some other kid said I wasn't cool. And so then he decided to hang out with the kids who like to bully me. Yeah. So maybe for you it was someone at work or at school, or maybe even someone on social media. And it's one thing for your enemies to do bad things to you. You expect that, right? It's quite another for your friends or family to do them. All right, now let's see if you guys can name some of the betrayals recorded in the Bible. So what are some of the betrayals that we know of in the Bible? So Judas, obviously. What else? Or who else? Oh, Jacob and Esau. Yes, definitely. That what Jacob did to Esau. Good. So Samson and Delilah. So what Delilah did to Samson. Mm-hmm. Good. Who else can you think of? Betrayal from someone who should have had their back, but instead they stabbed them in the back. Cain betrayed Abel. Mm-hmm. Well, Peter, you mean with his denying Jesus? Not really a betrayal, but it was kind of like a betrayal. Good. Yeah. Yes, David was his son-in-law, and he loved him, and he was loyal to him, and yet Saul betrayed David, definitely.
How about Eve to Adam?
By getting him to eat the fruit as well? I don't know. I don't know if I'd call that a betrayal. Okay, David betrayed Uriah. Very good. Any others come to mind? Mm-hmm. Yep. Cain definitely betrayed Abel. Let me see some of the ones. Oh, Abimelech definitely betrayed his brothers. He killed them all. Joseph's brothers betrayed Joseph. Let's see. The one we're going to look at, of course, today is one of the more well-known ones, with Absalom betraying David. Okay, so if you would, grab your Bible and let's turn back to our book of 2 Samuel as we're continuing this study through these books, 1 and 2 Samuel, trying to understand them, but also trying to find application for us in this study. So last time we looked at chapters 13 and 14, which was Absalom, Amnon, and Tamar, and just kind of the beginning of the troubles from within David's own household. And from that section, I wanted us to see the problems of not disciplining as the Lord has commanded. So today we're going to be going through 2 Samuel 15 and 16, Absalom's conspiracy. And we're not going to look at it today, but if you check out Psalm 3, it was written by David around this time, and the ancient header says, "A psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son." So you might want to go home and check it out. But from our section today, I really want us to see the power of deception. Now remember, this is a class, and so if you have a question or comment, go ahead and stop us and bring it out. And did somebody get the microphone? Was somebody... You got it? Thank you, sir. We do use a microphone in this class, and that's so everyone in the class can hear you, but also so everyone online can hear you as well. Okay, so I would like someone to read for us. So who'd like to get us started here with verses 1 through 6? So 2 Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. Who's got this? Over here. Thank you. Oh, I guess somebody raised their hand first. I don't care. You choose who you want. They'll all get an opportunity. There are lots of reading tonight. So verses 1 through 6. Thank you.
Now it came about after this that Absalom provided for himself a chariot and horses and 50 men as runners before him. Absalom used to raise early and stand beside the way to the gate. And when any man had a suit to come to the king for judgment, Absalom would call to him and say, "From what city are you?" And he would say, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "See, your claims are good and right, but no man listens to you on the part of the king." Moreover, Absalom would say, "Oh, that one would appoint me judge in the land. Then every man who has any suit or cause could come to me, and I would give him justice." And when a man came near to prostrate himself before him, he would put out his hand and take hold of him and kiss him. In this manner, Absalom dealt with all Israel who came to see the king for judgment. So Absalom stole away the hearts of the men of Israel.
Good. All right, so looking at verse 1, Absalom, he's doing this to promote himself. So, sending runners like this is kind of a way of calling attention to the person who's coming, the position of the person. Absalom, the guy's just all about showmanship. And we can see, man, he's energetic, he's industrious. I mean, he just really took great pains to work out his plan here. Now, look at what he said in verses 3 and 4. As he's trying to discredit the king in the eyes of his subjects. Now, today, we refer to this as populism. See, Absalom, he's for the little guy. He's for the little people, you see, the ones who are overlooked and mistreated by the elites. I mean, never mind the fact that Absalom is one of the elites, but anyway, that's what they do. It's called populism. And notice that he wouldn't allow them to bow down to him. Instead, he'd kiss them. He's treating them as equals. So how did he steal their hearts? All right, well, by appearing to give personal attention to their complaints, making promises he could never fulfill, and then lots of kissing. Okay, so it sounds like the politicians of today, shaking hands and kissing babies as they're working the room, they work the crowd. So today we refer to all of this as political pandering. It's saying or doing whatever it takes to get voter support, regardless of what the politician himself truly believes and feels. That's irrelevant. It's just saying and doing whatever it takes to get the votes. Okay, let's go on. Who'd like to read verses 7 through 12? Oh, two hands, whoever you want.
At the end of 4 years, Absalom said to the king, "Let me go to Hebron and fulfill a vow I made to the Lord. While your servant was living in Geshur in Aram, I made this vow. If the Lord takes me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron." The king said to him, "Go in peace." So he went to Hebron. Then Absalom sent secret messengers throughout the tribes of Israel to say, as soon as they hear the sound of the trumpets, then say, "Absalom is king in Hebron." 200 men from Jerusalem had accompanied him. They had been invited as guests and went quite innocently, knowing nothing about the matter. While Absalom was offering sacrifices, he also sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor, to come from Gilo, his hometown. And so the conspiracy gained strength, and Absalom's following kept on increasing.
Good. So verse 7 has a copyist error. You'll notice some versions say 4 years, some versions say 40 years. In the text it says 40, but the NIV and some others, they just changed it to 4. Now we know it was 4 because 40 was too long. But we can see that it's also translated that way in the Septuagint, in the Syriac, and also in the writings of Josephus. So yeah, it was supposed to be 4 years. But even think about it, with 4 years, I mean, he's playing the long game here. You can definitely see his patience in devising his plans. Okay, so looking at verse 8, it's pretty sad that he'd use religion as the cover here. He's using religion as a cover-up for his revolt. Absalom, I don't know, he just seems to be a really great liar. And some people are just so good at it. And sadly, as you know, there have always been people who they have used religion to try to hide their true intentions. Now, all right, Hebron is David's first capital. It was Absalom's hometown. I mean, they were probably, the people of Hebron probably very proud of him. I mean, it was a great place to find supporters. So verse 11 is interesting. You see here, these people didn't know anything about his plans. But Absalom, he invited them. Why? Well, in order to appear that he had more supporters than he actually had. The guy is so clever. So Gilo, where Ahithophel was from, thought to have been located somewhere in the hill country of Judah, somewhere in between Hebron and Jerusalem, perhaps the ruins of Jala. Really difficult to know for sure with some of those ancient towns. But look at how Absalom did this. Just with this great deception. And it is so easy to just get caught up with the crowd, isn't it? See, most people, they probably went along with the revolt without even knowing what was going on and what was happening. They were simply deceived into following him. And likewise, we need to be very careful because Satan is the master of deception. And he also uses the hype of the crowd. Jesus said, in one of the passages mentioned tonight, enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter by it. For the gate is small, and the way is narrow that leads to life, and few are those who find it. And it's not always true, but there's a saying. If the majority of the world believes it, color it wrong. It's not always true, but it's an interesting thought. Okay, who'd like to read verses 13 through 18? Who's got this one? Over there. Thank you.
A messenger came and told David, "The hearts of the people of Israel are with Absalom." Then David said to all his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, "Come, we must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to overtake us and bring ruin on us and put the city to the sword." The king's officials answered him, "Your servants are ready to do whatever our lord the king chooses." The king set out with his entire household following him, but he left 10 concubines to take care of the palace. So the king set out with all the people following him, and they halted at the edge of the city. All his men marched past him, along with all the Kerethites and the Pelethites, and all the 600 Gittites who had accompanied him from Gath marched before the king.
Good. Now, as you know, overwhelming odds that never stopped David before. So, why? Why did he leave without a fight? Well, I think he's really trying to avoid a civil war here, and also he's going to cause all kinds of bloodshed of his people. He wanted to avoid that. And he's probably trying to protect his son as well. All right, so looking at verse 16, it seems that David expected to come back, right? Or he wouldn't have left them there. So these 10 concubines, they're going to come into the story later. And maybe they wanted to stay. Maybe they're like, just look, we'll be fine. Nothing's going to happen to us. You go on. All right, now, verse 18, these are all Philistines, different towns in Philistia. And so, you see, since these guys weren't Israelites, they're simply loyal to David. And he had apparently, picked them up, or at least picked some of them up during his time among the Philistines. Okay, let's go on 19 through 23. Who'd like to read this one? Back there, thank you.
Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, "Why are you also going with us? Return and remain with the king. for you are a foreigner and also an exile from your own place. In fact, you came only yesterday. Shall I make you wander up and down with us today? Since I go, I know not where. Return and take your brethren back. Mercy and truth be with you. But Ittai answered the king and said, As the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, surely in whatever place my lord the king shall be, whether in death or life, even there also your servant will be. So David said to Hittai, Go and cross over. Then Hittai the Gittite and all his men and all the little ones who were with him crossed over. And all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people crossed over. The king himself also crossed over the brook Kidron, and all the people crossed over toward the way of the wilderness.
Good. Okay, so verse 19, he's just speaking of Absalom, who had set himself up as king. So this guy, he'd already been a fugitive. He'd already been in exile from the Philistines, so David didn't want him to have to continue that kind of life. But this is another good example of David and his, being a person who was considerate, not just someone who thought only of himself. Obviously, we could talk here about the importance of being considerate. So take a look at verse 21. Not all of them, but most English translations, whenever you see Lord in all caps, okay, what is it referring to? What is Lord in all caps? Because you'll find Lord in lower caps and then Lord in all caps. That one's Yahweh. Yeah. The other one is the Adonai word. That's the master word. But Lord in all caps is going to be talking about Yahweh or Jehovah. So anyway, just to keep in mind. Anyway, so the point is, this guy's a proselyte to Judaism. And he's going to stick with David no matter what, through life and death. And so I think this is a good question, a side question. Do we have that kind of commitment to our king? We're going to cling to him, whether it means life or death. All right, let's go 24 through 29. Who's got this? Got a hand here. Got one hand here. Thank you.
Now behold, Zadok also came, all the Levites with him, carrying the ark of the covenant of God. And they set down the ark of the God, and Abiathar came up unto the people, came up until all the people had finished passing from the city. The king said to Zadok, Return the ark of God to the city. If I find favor in the sight of the Lord, then he will bring me back again and show me both it and his habitation. But if he should say this, I have no delight in you, behold, here I am. Let him do to me as it seems good to him. The king, as I say, I'm going 29, the king said also to Zadok the priest, Are you not a seer? Return to the city in peace, and your two sons with you, your son Amadaz and Jonathan, the son of Abiathar. See, I am going to wait at the fords of the wilderness until word comes from you to inform me. Therefore Zadok said to Abiathar, Return to the ark of God to Jerusalem and remain there.
Good. So David knew that it wouldn't be any good taking the ark with him if God wasn't with him. And of course that's something that we learned in 1 Samuel. You can't just manipulate God. You've got his ark of the covenant and he's going to be with you. No. So if God was with him, he's going to be able to go back and worship God in Jerusalem. All right, so looking at verse 26, you see he accepted whatever God did would be good. And like him, we need to be willing to let God be God. And so, and if it's the case, disciplining us, maybe that's what seems best to him. Sometimes we do need trials to strengthen us and to mature us or to straighten us out or whatever it might be. No, they are not fun at the time. So anyway, verse 28, we can see that he's going to use them as couriers of any news. So they're going to be at the place where they could retreat across the Jordan if it was necessary. See, fords are just the shallow places in a river that you can get across. All right, let's go read 30 through 37. Who's got this? Thank you.
But David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered, and he was barefoot. All the people with him covered their heads too, and were weeping as they went up. Now David had been told, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. So David prayed, Lord, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness. When David arrived at the summit where people used to worship God, Hushai the Archite was there to meet him, his robe torn and dust on his head. David said to him, If you go with me, you will be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, Your Majesty, I will be your servant. I was your father's servant in the past, but now I will be your servant. Then you can help me by frustrating Ahithophel's advice. Won't the priests Zadok and Abiathar be there with you? Tell them anything you hear in the king's palace. Their two sons, Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, and Jonathan, son of Abiathar, are there with them. Send them to me with anything you hear. So Hushai, David's confidant, arrived at Jerusalem as Absalom was entering the city.
Good. All right, so verse 30, of course, those are expressions of humiliation and mourning and all of that. And, you know, you think about it, indeed, he's receiving the consequences of his sin with Bathsheba and his poor parenting. And I think he recognized that he probably deserved it. So the Mount of Olives, of course, just east of Jerusalem, separated by the Kidron Valley. And you know, God would later answer David's prayer in verse 31 with a yes. It just seemed to really bother David that Ahithophel, you know, switched sides here. His counselor, Ahithophel, gave allegiance to Absalom. Kind of made him a little bit upset. Now, this is kind of interesting that the NIV Study Bible put me onto this. If you put a couple of verses together, 2 Samuel 11:3 and 23:34, Ahithophel might have been Bathsheba's grandfather. So maybe he knew about David's dealings with his granddaughter, and so he held that against him. Don't know. All right, now notice verse 34, how David prayed for God to do it, and then he told Hushai to do it. So God, please do this. Hushai, you do it. I don't think it's a lack of faith. All right? I think it's doing what some people call putting legs to your prayers. I like the saying, God feeds the birds, but he doesn't throw the food into their nests. We need to do what we can and then leave the rest up to God. And so Ahithophel's his defection was going to be counterbalanced here by the loyalty of Hushai. And I'm sure that you've noticed this, because when you get in the difficulties of life, the strains and the stresses, all of that, the hard times, that is when we really find out who is our friends and who's our enemies, who they are. All right, so Hushai's friendship and loyalty, it even went to the point you're putting his life on the line for David. David really had some good friends in his life, if you think about it. You know, we're not always blessed to have friends like Saul's son Jonathan or like Hushai and some of the others. But I guess that we can be determined. We can determine to be one, to be a great friend like that to others. Okay, before moving on, any questions or comments, anything that jumped out at you in this chapter that might, you know, chapter 15, that might be interesting to you? Over here.
I just hadn't noticed before that all the Levites went with him carrying the ark. So they were on board with David and whatever he was going to be doing there.
Yeah.
That had to give him great confidence.
The religious
even though
leaders.
he turned them back, but all the religious leaders were with him,
Good.
trusting him to be the king.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. What else? Anything else jump out at you? Okay, all right, let's go on to the next chapter then. Who'd like to start us off with verses 1 through 4? Just anyone who likes to read.
When David had gone a short distance beyond the summit, there was Ziba, the steward of Mephibosheth.
Good luck.
Huh?
Good luck. No, Mephibosheth. But at least that's how Americans often say it. But yeah, just pretend you know how to say it.
Waiting to meet him. He had a string of donkeys saddled and loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 cakes of raisins, 100 cakes of figs, and a skin of wine. The king asked Ziba, "Why have you brought these?" Ziba answered, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on. The bread and fruit are for the men to eat, and the wine is to refresh those who become exhausted in the wilderness." The king then asked, "Where is your master's grandson?" Ziba said to him, "He is staying in Jerusalem because he thinks, 'Today the Israelites will restore to me my grandfather's kingdom.'" Then the king said to Ziba, "All that belonged to Mephibosheth is now yours. I humbly bow." Ziba said, "May I find favor in your eyes, my lord the king."
Good. Okay, so this is the Ziba or Zeba, or however you want to pronounce that, from chapter 9. See, he's the one that David told to serve Mephibosheth and take care of his property. So Ziba claimed here that, oh yeah, Mephibosheth, he's trying to use the situation to take the throne. And of course, that was actually a big fat lie. And David would find out later that it was a lie. So what happens is what was going on here is he coveted the land that David had given to Mephibosheth. And so the presents, they're just to butter David up. And I mean, don't you just hate it when people try to manipulate you like that? They've got these ulterior motives when they're giving presents or they're doing something nice for you. They're just, we find a lot of deception in these two chapters. I mean, Absalom and Ziba, boy, they proved to be masters of it. Deception, as you know, is a quality of Satan, not God. Deception, that is Satan's forte. That's his most powerful tool in leading people away from God. As you read through the New Testament, there's this phrase that keeps coming up over and over and over. It's, "Do not be deceived." It's over and over in the New Testament. Do not be deceived. There's a reason for that, because Satan is really good at deceiving people. Now, David should have waited to hear Mephibosheth's side of the story. It's good to take people at their word, but I would argue that it's different when someone comes to us with a slander or accusation. I think a good rule to follow is the one in Deuteronomy 19:15. "A single witness shall not rise up against a man on account of any iniquity or any sin which he has committed. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter shall be confirmed." So don't just take someone's word for it. Make sure you get some more evidence, like 2 or 3 witnesses. Make sure things are confirmed. Okay, who'd like to read verses 5 through 8? Thank you.
When King David came to Baram, behold, there came out from there a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came out, cursing continually as he came. He threw stones at David and all his servants of the King David, and all the people and all the mighty men were at his right hand and at his left. Thus Shimei said when he cursed, get out, you man of bloodshed and worthless fellow. The Lord has returned upon you all the bloodshed of the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned, and the Lord has given the kingdom into the hands of your son Absalom. And behold, you are taken in your own evil, for you are a man of bloodshed.
Okay, good. So Bahurim, just a village east of the Mount of Olives. So this guy believed that Saul's house really should have been, should still be the royal family. But the thing is, it was God's decision, not David's. And if you remember, it was really Abner's fault that there was all the bloodshed between the two houses, that there was that civil war. And so he's blaming David for stuff he shouldn't be. But I don't know, have you ever had somebody throw rocks at you? That'll make you grumpy. All right, let's go on, verses 9 through 14. Thank you.
Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let him go over and cut off his head." But the king said, "What does this have to do with you, the son of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because the Lord said to him, 'Curse David,' who can ask, 'Why do you do this?'" David then said to Abishai and all his officials, "My son, my own flesh and blood is trying to kill me. How much more than this Benjamite? Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Lord has told him to. It may be that the Lord will look upon his misery and restore to me his covenant blessing instead of his curse today." So David and his son continued along the road while Shimei was going along the hillside opposite him, cursing as he went and throwing stones at him and showering him with dirt. The king and all the people with him arrived at their destination exhausted, and there he refreshed himself.
Okay, good. So remember, Abishai, that was Joab's brother. So those guys were David's nephews, because Zeruiah was David's sister. So verse 10, that's just an expression that means we don't see eye to eye. You know, what do I have to do with you? So yeah, the sons of Zeruiah, what is the first thing they think to do? It's always force. Just let me cut his head off. They just want to use force for everything. Abishai, he's the one who was ready to kill Saul while he slept. Remember 1 Samuel 26:8. So David, he thought, well, you know, who knows? It may even be God's prompting what's going on here. But I think this is a really good illustration here of the Greek word in the New Testament for gentleness or meekness. We find all that all the way throughout the New Testament. Meekness doesn't mean weakness. Rather, it means power under control. So David, you see, he very easily had the power to kill the guy or to have him killed, but he restrained. Okay, so I remember in primary school, back in primary school, trying to beat up every kid who said something about my mom, right? Of course, they didn't know her, but I wasn't going to take it. Yo, mama, what'd you say? You know, type of thing. Okay, that is the exact opposite of meekness. I finally got to the point where I could say sticks and stones, etc. when I got into my 40s. So, yes, no. All right, so let's go on verses 15 through 19. Who's got this one? Anyone? Over there, over there. Yeah, thank you.
Then Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, entered Jerusalem, and Athapal with him. Now it came about when Heshi the Archite, David's friend, came to Absalom, that Hushai said to Absalom, "Long live the king, long live the king." Absalom said to Hushai, is this your loyalty to your friend? Why did you not go with your friend?" Then Hushai said to Absalom, "No, for whom the Lord this people and all the men of Israel have chosen, his I will be, and with him I will remain. Besides, whom should I serve? Should I serve in the presence of his son, as I have served in your father's presence? So I will be in your presence."
Good. All right, so, yeah, Hushai knew that David, Absalom knew that Hushai was David's friend. I get all the names confused here, all these Hebrew names. He definitely knew that Hushai was David's friend, but a bit of flattery seemed to work well with Absalom. Hushai, I suspect he really played this out in his mind. How's he going to convince him? He must have been very convincing. He must have just said it just right. And so David's plan here is working, so he could get in good with Absalom to be a spy to counter Ahithophel. It's working out. Okay, so let's read 20 through 23. I'll go ahead and read this one because it's a little uncomfortable. Then Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give your advice. So what shall we do?" Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines, whom he has left to keep the house. Then all Israel will hear that you have made yourself odious to your father. The hands of all who are with you will also be strengthened." So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. The advice of Ahithophel, which he gave in those days, was as if one inquired of the word of God. So was all the advice of Ahithophel regarded by both David and Absalom. So in other words, the people would realize that to be for Absalom was to be against David. They wanted to make that clear, because it might have been a little bit confusing to some of the people. And then they would be strengthened, I think, when they saw that Absalom, man, he's going to stop at nothing. I mean, this guy, he's ruthless. He's going to stop at nothing to make his rebellion complete. And so David, he just left them behind to keep the house. He had no idea that Absalom would do such a wicked thing to them. And obviously we could talk here. I mean, it's just so sad, and it's sinful when women are treated like possessions. But the guy is just, ugh. All right. So his counsel, all right, Ahithophel, it's normally regarded as equivalent to a word from the Lord. Like getting advice from God. But the guy probably had some worldly wisdom, but his advice is far from being equivalent to advice from God. It's very ungodly. And so I read that there's a Jewish proverb that later came about that said, "Beware of the advice of Ahithophel." So that was a Jewish proverb. Now, it's a bit different, but it makes me think of religious leaders today who sound so good. They're so slick, and it sounds so right and good, and yet they are false teachers. How do you know? Because what they're saying contradicts what God has said in the Scriptures when you compare what they say to the Scriptures. And so false teachers, they arise in every age, and multitudes follow them as if they were speaking for God. Okay. All right, good. So let's see if we can get some lessons here from these two chapters. What are some of the things that we can learn? Do not be deceitful, and don't let yourself be deceived. So don't be on either end of that. Good. What else can we learn? Watch your back. Sadly, that is a thing in life, isn't it? You got to watch your back.
Pray to God.
What's that?
Pray to God.
Pray to God. The importance of praying to God. Mm-hmm. What else? Importance of trusting God. Mm-hmm. Accept the help that God sends. Okay. Because he prayed, and then there was Hushai. Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to pay for what you've done.
Yes, and there's consequences for your sins, and because of what David had done, said it was going to be problems in his own house. But of course we see it all the way through, not just with David, but with everyone. Yeah. Good. What else?
When someone looks too good to be true, like a baby kisser.
Beware of baby kissers. Yeah. Yeah, if someone looks too good to be true, they probably are. There's probably something wrong. If you got some red flags, yeah. Some people they're just too slick. What do they say in Australia? What do they call them? Smarmy? Is that the term they like to use? Calling someone smarmy? Yeah. If they're too smarmy, ooh, yeah, beware. They're just a little too good. What else?
someone has the right lineage doesn't make them honorable.
Okay, so definitely that's true. Your background, your lineage, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be honorable. Any other lessons?
We don't have to always rise to the fight either with this guy that was throwing things at him and all of that. He's like, let God will handle it.
Good. So yeah,
I mean, he gets down later, but
he does, but you don't always have to rise to the occasion. Someone's throwing rocks at you, throwing dust on your head. You know, it's called meekness or gentleness, and it's power under control. You got the power to squish them, but you refrain from it. So he just is going to let God deal with that, and that's a good way to be.
from wisdom, though, of realizing that you're sinful and that you don't have a leg to stand on. You can't act like I've never done anything wrong. You know, I mean, this guy was after him.
Here, you need the microphone. You're talking too much. Cover the microphone. Well, no, because I'd have to repeat everything that you said, and I'm lazy. So say it again.
I just think that, I don't know what I was saying.
It was good stuff. What did you say?
Being aware that you're sinful, yeah. I mean, so you can't always act like you're justified in everything. He could have attacked the guy, but he also knows that he's a big sinner and that maybe some of this had come upon him because of his own sin. So he's willing to just stand back and like, I'm not worth anything either.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
I don't know.
Yeah, knowing that we are all sinners and maybe we brought this on ourselves. Yeah, sometimes people they got this idea that they are always right and everything they do is right and good, and everyone who crosses them needs to be squished, and we need to have more humility than that. Anything else you can think of? Okay, just some of the ones that I jotted down. That we need to make sure that we are not on either end of deception, especially when it comes to matters of eternal weight. Don't just get caught up in the hype of the crowd. The importance of being considerate, like David to Ittai. I thought that was nice to that guy, the Gittite. Ittai the Gittite. Then I see the importance of commitment to our King. See, to cling to him whether it means life or death. We need to pray to God and then do everything that we can on our part. See, I don't have a problem with David praying and then doing what he could do. We need to make sure that we don't accept accusations and slander too quickly. Just when someone's starting to slander or accuse someone, just chill out a bit. Don't just take it hook, line, and sinker. The importance of meekness, power under control, because just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. And then beware of the advice of Ahithophel. Okay, that's all for today. Appreciate you being here. Come back next week and we'll continue on chapter 17. You guys are dismissed.